Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the second session of the powerful, unmistakable Legacy Leaders series here at Franklin University's Leadership Center. I am Dr. Alencia Bowen, the Dean of the Ross College of Business, and I serve as the Executive Director of the Leadership Center, Co Executive Director of the Global Center for Healthcare Education. You'll see an unfamiliar face here today with Allison. Allison's filling in for Jenny on today. Allison is the academic coordinator for the College of Health and Public Administration. Thank you, Allison, for filling in. I'm excited today to present to you Kimberly Miller, who is an esteemed member with 25 years of experience in social service industry in Ohio. With hands-on direct care experience, Kim has firsthand insight into the challenges that the sector faces daily. Over the past 2 decades, Kim has consistently demonstrated outstanding leadership and a deep commitment to driving positive change, maximizing the use of strengths in leadership. Kimberly's extensive background, including over 20 years in leadership roles, is a testament to her dedication and expertise in the industry. Kimberly worked at the Buckeye Ranch previously as the Executive Vice President of Strategy and Business Development to transform organizational strengths to deliver quality services and retain our talented workforce. Kimberly is currently the Chief Operating Officer of Lutheran Social Services of Central Ohio, where she works with 720 plus employees to create a culture of compassion, inclusion, integrity, and excellence. Leveraging a robust background in nonprofit leadership, Kimberly focuses on driving scalable growth and fostering a value driven culture that is anchored in data driven decision making. We're excited to have Kimberly on this morning, and we know that you will gain some wonderful insights in your leadership trajectory. If you have questions, please feel free to put those questions in the chat, and when the presentation is over, we'll be happy to address them. We're now in the hands of Kimberly. Thank you.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Thank you for attending this presentation today. I also want to thank Allison, Jenny Cook, who couldn't be with us today, but has really helped me connect with Franklin University Leadership Center, and of course, Dr. Bowen, for giving me this opportunity to present not only today, but I also presented last month on utilizing your strengths. The power of communication is a great topic when we're trying to find alignment with stakeholders, employees, people we serve, and our customers. It's one of the most important things we can do in leadership is to communicate well. Communication allows us to empower, inspire, and to lead, which is exactly what this topic is about today. I'm really passionate about this work. I'm blessed to be able to give this presentation, and my wish for you today is to learn something. We always want to try to learn something new every day. And communication is a powerful tool that's going to help you align in your current organization as well as in your personal life. So, again, my name is Kimberly Miller. I am currently the COO of Lutheran Social Services of Central Ohio. We're about an $80 million in revenue organization. We have 725 employees. And I would say that we have a core 10 programs that we work with. We oversee some homeless shelters here in Central Ohio. We have a service line of nursing homes and independent living programming for seniors. We have food pantries, and we also have a qualified health center. So it's a pretty big array of portfolio. And what I, would like to say in the beginning is that communication has not always been a strong skill of mine in the last 25 years. I would say in the past 5 years, I've really tried to maximize my communication skills, and I've intentionally worked on it. So this presentation is how I view strategic communication in an organization from a leader's perspective. And you're going to hear throughout this presentation that I've just had a lot of great mentors in this area. I've been blessed to work with leaders who actually taught me different ways of communicating in different situations. I've also had leaders who were vulnerable to walk through pros and cons of certain communication strategies. And I was always listening and I was always taking note to say, maybe one day I might be in this role and I need to really think about how I'm going to communicate as a leader. There is no wrong or right way to explain strategic communication, but you'll see in this presentation of this is how I choose to look at strategic communication. We know that there's a lot of different ways as well. So I want to start off with just everyone looking at this picture. It's a Tuesday morning. It's actually beautiful outside. And I want to get in the right space for us to be able to really absorb the information that's going to be coming in this presentation. So I always like to do a grounding mindfulness exercise before I do a presentation because I think that helps the audience. But to be truthful, it helps me too as a presenter. So I'd like everyone just to take a look at this picture and just take one deep breath. So inhale and exhale. And we're going to do that 2 more times. So let's take another deep breath. So let's inhale and then let out that big exhale. And one more breath. In and out. Okay. This is a great exercise to do before you start a meeting, with your colleagues. It just really allows us to be present and in the moment, which is really important. And so I always like to start off presentations just taking some deep breaths before we dive into a really fun topic. Okay, so what are the objectives of today? I'll be with you probably for the next 40 minutes. So the first thing I want us to do is just to have fun. Think about this. This is your professional development piece for the day. Professional development should and always be fun. This is you are taking the time out of your day to learn something new, to hear a different perspective, and we need to celebrate that. Additionally, we're going to learn what my definition of strategic communication is. We're going to talk about different elements of strategic communication and then how to deliver effective communication. And then what are some best practices? And then we'll open it up for some question and answer. Okay, so this screen is intentionally left blank. We all know how busy our day is and how many people constantly come at us. So I thought, well, I'm just going to put a white screen up while we do this. And I want you to think about a time you had to communicate something really important. It can be professionally or personally. So I'm going to give you just a few minutes to think about a time you had to communicate something really important. Some ideas could be, was it a presentation you had to deliver? Like me today. I think this is important. Was it a conversation with a loved one? Was it instructions to your child that were really important? So again, I'll give you about a minute to think through something. Okay, now that you have an idea of a conversation that you've had to communicate, something really important, whatever that conversation was, one thing you had to do was to plan to ensure whoever your audience was, you wanted them to understand what you were saying, right? That's really, really important. The whole point of communicating is to really is to articulate what you want to share. You really had to think about the best way to communicate or deliver the news, or you had to think about the best way to teach someone how to do something. When you're going through that process, this is what I consider strategic communication. You actually do it all the time. You do it in little mini bites every day. The other day I had to tell my son something really important, and I needed him to really listen to me. So I had to think about, when was that right moment that I wanted to tell my son this piece of information? And did I want it to be face to face? Did I want to write it down? That's exactly what strategic communication is. So this is not a new skill. This is something that you do every single day. And again, this is my definition of strategic communication. I know that there are a lot of definitions of strategic communication, but I'm going to be talking about the communication that focuses on long term impact and integrates seamlessly with an organization's strategic vision. I consider strategic communication very purposeful, and it's very planned. You want to think about what you're going to say. Um, you're going to hear me say an analogy of a puzzle. I'm obsessed with puzzling. And I think that strategic communication is really putting a puzzle together. And at the end, there's a beautiful message, there's a beautiful picture, but there's a lot of pieces that need to go into it in order to have that message, to really have that message stick. The other thing I want to talk about before we move into some strategies and components of strategic organization is this idea of internal versus external. We know there's strategic internal communication within an organization, and we know there's external strategic communication. I do today really want to focus on this internal strategic communication. Not saying external isn't important, but that's not my focus today. My focus is really about internal, and it's about building alignment within your organization. So, internal strategic communication for me is about alignment. And why is that important? It's important for like a lot of different reasons, but we want to make sure our employees feel engaged and aligned within our organization. We want our employees to understand the company's direction, feel their work contributes to the bigger vision. And when we create that internal strategic communication and alignment, employees are more engaged and motivated. And that ultimately says they're going to stay at your company. And isn't that what we all want? We all want our great employees to stay with us. And so strategic communication is very important because it really drives that alignment that our internal stakeholders are going to gravitate towards. Um, I think having alignment improves communication effectiveness. So when we have alignment, that means we have consistent messaging. We'll talk about that later in the presentation. We want to build a stronger culture, right? Strategic communication and alignment builds culture. There's a clear and consistent internal communication strategy, reinforces the company's culture and values. Um, and I also think strategic communication alignment really focuses on better decision making. So when employees feel well informed and aligned, they can really make better decisions, which is exactly what we want from our employees. So again, I'm not trying to not, talk about external engagement. I think that is so important. But this presentation is really focusing on internal alignment with strategic communication. So this is a little chart I created when I really thought about all the years I've done strategic communication and and what is needed. What are the components of strategic of communication? And for me, it really comes down to this pyramid. It's about vision, mission, strategy, and core values. And there's a reason why strategic communication is at the bottom is because that is our foundation of what we need to do in order for our employees to really feel aligned to our organization. They need to understand the organization's vision. They need to understand the mission. They need to understand what the strategy is behind it and what our core values are. And when we have all those things lined up, people feel like they're a part of the organization. They feel like they're working towards something, and there's a passion that just eludes from your employees. So we're going to get into each one of these components in this presentation. So the first thing is really about this quote. I love the quote, so I had to share it. It's, in every thriving workplace, communication is the thread that weaves success. Um, Communication is where it's at. You got to think about how often you communicate, what do you communicate, and what is that consistent message? So let's dive into vision. Every organization should have a vision statement. They're really important because it's really where that organization aims to accomplish, and it gives it purpose. A vision statement, I should say, is a short phrase describing the future you want to work towards. It's hope, honestly. It's our organization's hope statement is what I like to call it. Some really great examples I feel of vision statements is Apple. So Apple's vision statement is to make the best products on earth and to leave the world a better place than when we found it. Nike is to do everything possible to expand human potential. Google's vision statement is to provide access to the world's information in one click. Wow, they've accomplished that. And then, to bring it a little closer to home, here in Franklin County, I pulled Nationwide Children's Hospital. This is my favorite vision statement. It's leading the transformation of child health so children everywhere achieve best outcomes. I mean, wow. That's a powerful statement for Nationwide Children's Hospital, and one I think we've all benefited from. But to transform child's health, wow. So these vision statements are really important, and we have to get these vision statements out to our employees because that's their hope. They are doing the work every single day, and we want our employees to understand, what are they working towards. We want people to understand, like, what is the vision for this organization. They have to have that vision, that hope, and so that's really important component of strategic communication. Second is, you got to have vision, but you have to have mission, right? And I think a mission statement is more consistent around organizations than a vision statement. But a mission statement is really, it should be a concise statement that explains what the organization does, who it serves, and how it plans to achieve its goals. That mission statement needs to be everywhere. People that work for you need to know what the mission is. That's ultimately why they do what they do on a daily basis. That's how we keep our employees motivated, is we want to motivate them for them to understand that their job is important to our mission. We can't do their job without, we can't meet our mission without their job. So some examples of mission statements that I really liked. This is like one of my favorite ones, and I'm not even a Starbucks drinker. But Starbucks mission statement is to inspire and nurture the human spirit, one person, one cup, one neighborhood at a time. Wow, makes me want to work there. I love the one neighborhood at a time because it is so true. Um, so I really loved that. We have Red Cross's mission statement is to provide compassionate care to victims of disaster. What the organization does, who does it serve, and how does it achieve its goal. So mission statements are extremely important in strategic communication. You got to have a really good mission statement that really forces your organization to look at those key components, what the organization does, who does it serve, and how does it achieve its goal. The next thing that I feel is a really, really important part of strategic communication is strategy. You can call strategy a lot of different things in an organization. A lot of people have strategic plans. Those strategic plans are created like every 3 to 5 years. And it's really how do we get to the mission and how do we get to the vision? It's how we do the things that we do to achieve the mission and the vision. So here, yeah, of course, you see my puzzle here because I just love that analogy. But to be honest with you, the puzzle pieces are all the goals to put together to one large strategy. Strategies are multiple components of things. If we want to build on a strategy, we want to, make Starbucks, the one place in the neighborhood where everyone goes. There's a lot of goals in components, and our employees need to understand what that strategy is. We can't just tell them to do things. We can't just turn our communication on a dime to say, this is what we're doing. It has to all be connected to our vision, our mission, and our strategy. Um, Business strategy is very important and allows employees, leaders, and board to align on where to put resources. So, and when I say resources, I talk about people resources and money resources. If we want, Starbucks wants to grow to be in every neighborhood, they're going to need the resources to do that. And so, again, understanding your organization's strategy, mission, and vision is extremely important in strategic communication. I love this quote. It says, vision without action is merely a dream. So you can't have a vision without doing some things. And action without vision just passes time. Vision with action can change the world. So that's really me putting together this vision, this mission, and this strategy. Strategy is the action of how we want to achieve our vision and mission. And finally, we have our core values as the last component of strategic or communication. Um, your core values as an organization should be woven into everything you do, um, and it should underline everything you do, who you hire, who you serve, how you treat people. Core values are the fundamental beliefs and principles that guide an organization. They help define the organization's culture and vision. They provide a framework for how the organization interacts with their employees, with their customers, and other stakeholders. Core values are extremely important, and I think they're the final component to making sure when you have strategic communication across an organization that you have to include your core values. Um, the next several pages is really what we've done at Lutheran Social Services in regards to our core values. In the past year, we revamped them. We had 8. No one could remember 8 core values. And so we really said, hey, let's drill down and decide what are those top 4 values. We want people to remember them and we want them to live them. So, what I like, this work was done before I joined LSS, but what I love about this work is that this is the work of a lot of different people. I love that they assigned an icon to the core values. I love that they define what the core values means to them. Compassion is a great thing. It can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. But LSS define what compassion means for them. And then you'll see in the bullet points that they really outlined what behaviors we want to see. It's one thing to say be compassionate, but to us at LSS, being compassionate means that we actively listen and mindfully to others. We act with kindness. We offer concern and patience and grace. We're thoughtful in our interactions and communication. So it gives you really tangible things that I love. So you can see our core values are compassion, inclusion, integrity, and excellence. We are working very hard to align all these 4 values into everything we do. So it comes down to like how we interview for new employees. We want to make sure that we are um, getting employees that offer compassion, inclusion, integrity, and excellence. So we're really toning in on what our questions are. Um, all of our policies, our code of conduct, all surrounds these core values as an organization. So back to strategic communication. I just went over the 4 components. And again, I'm just putting this back up because strategic communication needs to be purposeful and planned. This again is my diagram. I didn't take it, from anywhere. This is really how I feel strategic communication, the 4 components that need to be a part of strategic communication in order to get alignment at an organization. So let's move on to how to deliver effective strategic communication. It's really important that you have strategic communication. And when I say strategic communication, it's weaving in your vision, your mission, your strategy, and your core values. And so the first thing that you really want to do is define your purpose and your audience. Because we're specifically talking about internal strategic communication in this presentation, you want to ask yourself, what do you want to achieve with this communication? What specific actions and reactions do you hope to elicit from your audience? And then who's your audience? And in this case, it's your employees. Your employees need to understand what the mission and the vision. They need to understand core values, and not just what they are, but how do you act with serving our population in conjunction with the core values. So you really need to think about, your purpose of how we put together that strategic communication. Preparation is the key. Developing key messaging. It's really important that you dive into your mission and your vision and your strategy and your core values, and you weave those together to develop a key message. So when your employees start on day one, they understand that you're here because you're a bigger part of this organization who serves people in poverty. Okay, that's your goal, and you're going to have a specific job to work towards that goal. So developing that messaging really starts from day one at orientation and is woven through the organization. You want to select ways to communicate the message. What's important is developing the core strategic communication message, but then how you get it out there. What's the most appropriate channels to reach your audience? Is it face to face? We hit it in orientation. The reason why you're here is because of this. This is our mission. This is our vision. But we need to continue that communication beyond orientation. We need to continue it when we're talking to our leaders, when we're talking to our staff about changes. We also need to make sure that our mission and our vision and our core values and our strategy is consistent across all the different ways we can communicate. So it's consistent on our social media, it's consistent in our policies, it's consistent in the way when we talk to our employees. You can also do a whole bunch of different formatting for your messaging. So you can see here, that we made posters to put up in all of our buildings on these 4 core values. We also made just a 1-pager for our leaders to have at their desk. So visuals are really important in my in my experience. A great way is to post those those posters up in the bathroom stalls, and to make sure that that message is clear. So lots of ways to communicate the message. Create and edit your messaging. So this is important in that you want to create your messaging. You want to Develop, high quality content that's clear, concise, and tailored to your employees. So you want to make sure that that mission statement is clear and concise, and it's a one liner. You want to make sure your vision aligns. And what's really important, I don't think I've said this, is you need to make sure your strategy aligns with your vision, that your strategy of what you're doing today in your organization is moving you towards that vision. That's really, really important. And making that connection with your staff. If you have a vision of serving, all the homeless people in Columbus, what is it we're doing now in our strategy to get us to that vision? Okay. Always making that connection is really, really important. Delivery. So this is delivering your message. This quote I love. It says, effective communication requires not just a strong message, but the right timing and delivery. How you deliver your strategic communication is so important. And I say, and deliver again. I didn't look this up before this presentation. I meant to, but I think I heard you have to hear something 7 or 10 times in order for it to sink in. So just because you've talked about core values once, just because you've talked about the mission once, does not mean that people are going to get it. You have to continually talk about why our vision of our organization, what is our strategy, and you always have to bring up the mission, because we have to make sure that we understand our mission is such a huge part of what we do. So I say delivery and deliver again. Repetitive messaging is really important. Okay, I'm going to move into, and I think this is my last section. What are best practices to affect strategic communication? So, in order to make sure you have really positive and intentional strategic communication, the communication really needs to be championed by all leaders. It's really, really important that if you have a communication department, that department is really aligned with what we want to communicate and how. The leaders of the organization have to really make this communication their own. They have to have the ability to align and comment and edit when the communication is getting developed. And sometimes communication needs to be reworded in the words of the leader to make it more genuine. Um, I know that I have a lot of talking points here as chief operating officer of a really large organization. But if I understand the intent around those talking points, I can make those talking points more in my own language. And I believe when you do that, um, it really allows the leader to take that strategic communication around, why we're doing what we're doing, what is our strategy. It just makes it more genuine, in my opinion. Another best practice to have effective communication is to create and foster open and transparent communication across your organization. Allow people to ask those questions. Make space for that. Make space. Make sure you always make space for communication, open and transparent. When you're delivering something, it's really important that our employees have the ability to really ask the questions they want. And by the way, you don't need to know the answers. There are times where I'm, standing in front of a lot of people and I feel like I have to answer this question, but I'm becoming more comfortable to say, you know what, that's a great question. I want to answer it right. And I just need to think about it a little bit more. I'll get back to you. That's really important. So make sure that you create a space to allow people to ask questions about the communication, ask about our mission. We want people to ask about our organizational strategy and core values. That means they care. That means they want to know more. That means they want to understand the why behind things. So create that space for your employees. Third is maintaining consistency across all communication channels. So this goes back to what I already said, but making sure that we have those talking points, as an organization of like, what is our mission? Why do we choose our mission? Is there a story behind it? Um, what is our strategy? What is our focus for this year? We all need to be on the same page, because if our employees are hearing different things from different people, they're not going to know what our focus is and what our strategy is. And then the last thing I'll say about this is just maintaining consistency around your core values. There is nothing worse than allowing someone in your organization that does not meet those core values. It can really ruin a culture. So, we have to make sure we're following our code of conduct, which should be driven by our core values, and making sure that we're holding people accountable to those core values. So that's really, really important. Next one is just encourage employee engagement and feedback. So this sort of goes with the create and foster open and transparent communication, except that this can take it a little further. Engaging employees in feedback is an art. The best practice is really making sure that, you're doing like a pulse survey on an annual basis, to make sure employees have the ability to give feedback to the organization. But there's also other things you can do, like stay interviews. We always talk about exit interviews, but the stay interviews are just as impactful, in my opinion, because we want to know why you're staying. Like, is it the mission? What more can we do? We want our employees to really understand what the mission is of the organization and the vision. And then finally, like, monitor and adopt to feedback and responses with your strategic communication. If you're getting a lot of feedback from, external people or internal of like, I just don't get our mission, or I don't understand our core values, like, really understand what that means. Are we not articulating it well enough? Is it not embedded in enough places? Really try to understand that and dive into that, and then monitor and adapt as needed. That's really, really important. So I'm going to end this presentation with this quote. I really like it. It's what matters about creating alignment around a strategy is not the volume of communication, but the quality and the precision. That's a really strong quote for me, because you want your strategic communication to have quality and precision, and to have really great delivery. So I think focusing on those four components of strategic communication, which is your vision, your mission, your strategy, and your core values, is going to allow for your organization to have a lot of internal alignment, which is really, really important when you want to build something great in your organization. So I am finished with this presentation. I will unshare my screen. Again, thank you for the last 40 minutes and listening to me about strategic communication. This is my email. I'm also on LinkedIn as well, if you'd like to find me. I do a lot of posts in regards to leadership and strengths and communication, and would love for you to continue to follow me. So I will stop sharing and come back on for any
Wonderful
questions.
job. Wonderful job.
Thanks.
Enjoyed so much. And I definitely have a few questions here in the chat. The first question is, and let me scroll back up, is Lutheran Social Services an EOS company? This
Oh
aligns
my
with EOS.
gosh.
Mhm.
Yes.
And
Yes,
for
yes,
those
yes,
that
yes.
may not know, what is EOS?
Yeah. EOS is the entrepreneurial operating system. There's a book called Traction. I don't know who, I should have it here in my
I
office, but
think
I
it's
can't find
Gina
it.
Wickman. Gino
There you go.
Wickman.
Thank
Mhm.
you. Yeah. Um, you probably heard some of that. It's funny you brought that up, because I was trying really hard not to um, depict the EOS system in this presentation, but you obviously saw it. EOS is an operating system that really allows you to keep your vision and your mission and your strategy at the top of everything you do. It's a way to formalize, I would say, your organizational strategic communication. And yes, we do use it here, and it's been a great tool for our staff to really understand where we're going as an organization. It's been fabulous. So if you want to talk more about that, would love to do that offline if anybody would like to.
Awesome. Thank you. As always, this recording will be made available on our website. We go through and make certain that it is accessible for all. And so you can go to franklin.edu/leadership center and events, and you will see the recording at that time. All right. Everything that we do at the Leadership Center that does not have a charge is listed or available in that area. Mm. Are there any other questions? This was a great presentation. Kimberly, let's expand a little bit on that, the stay interviews. That is something that many people do not participate in or have within their organization. What does that look like?
Yeah, so, what it looks like is, you would have to obviously have a strategy of like who you would want to do state interviews with, but it's really about why do you stay here? And tell us, what impact you have, in your department and in your job. And that feedback that you get, normally state interviews are not a survey, they're more of a one-on-one type of conversation that's genuine. Um, you know, we really want to hear why they stay at the job. And then because, you know, there's a lot of people that stay and we don't talk to them about why they stay. And they might say, honestly, it's the benefits. They might say it's because I what I get to do every day. That's the kind of stuff that we need to build upon. We need those people to be the champions, and we need to get their feedback on, hey, we have a new initiative coming up. Um, in your stay interview, you said you stay here because the mission. We're thinking about doing this. Tell me what your thoughts are. It's that one-on-one, genuine kind of conversation is what when I think of stay interviews. Um, I think when you have stay interviews, the employees that stay here know what's working and what's not. They know the pulse of the organization. And it's really important that you connect with those people that are staying. They're going to be your advocates. They're going to be the ones that are going to bring those new employees on and hopefully have them stay with the organization as well.
That's awesome. Here at Franklin University, I do not believe we have state interviews. However, our president, Dr. Decker, has periodically what he calls listening lunches, and he
Oh, yeah.
invites individuals from all different areas to come together for lunch that he provides, and they talk about everything, things that are
I
going on
love
in their
that.
individual areas. And I guess in some ways that could align with that stay interview process because when the president takes the time to have lunch with you to hear
Yeah.
what you do and and share how it fits with the university. That's a really great that's rare. So great.
Yeah.
Great.
Definitely.
Are there any other questions or comments? Well, we're excited because we've heard you a couple times here at the Leadership Center on different topics. You've done a wonderful job as usual. And I want to just remind everyone that next week we'll be continuing with our pool series, The Powerful, Unmistakable Legacy Leaders. We'll have with us soon to be, and I just blanked out on her name. It's funny when you have someone's name, soon to be Dr. Pamela Green, and she has a topic of carrying the torches. And I think that you will also enjoy what she brings. And then if you go to our website, you'll see that we have a panel on the last week, and that panel will also explore opportunities that will help you emerge and continue to thrive as a leader. Okay, thank you for spending your almost lunch hour with us. If you have any other questions regarding the Leadership Center, feel free to reach out to us. And don't forget to like and join us on LinkedIn as well as Facebook. Have a great rest of the day, everyone.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye bye.